Voters in the Venezuelan state of Barinas headed to the polls this Sunday to elect the state governor. West African leaders gathered in Ghana's capital, Accra, on Sunday decided to impose fresh sanctions on Mali over the delayed transition from military rule. The Collective Security Treaty Organization completed its deployment of peacekeeping forces in Kazakhstan following the request from the country's president in the face of destabilization attempts. From the headquarters of Teleso English in Havana, Cuba, this is from the south, and I'm Katrina Goss. We begin in Venezuela, where voters in the southwestern state of Barinas headed to the polls to elect their next state governor. The official results are expected shortly. 3 candidates are in the running for the governorship. For the Great Patriotic Pole Alliance, former Foreign Minister Jorge Arias, representing the opposition Democratic Unity Roundtable Coalition is Sergio Garrido, and Claudio Fermin is the candidate for the Solutions for Venezuela party. Over 600,000 people are registered to vote in the state. The regional director of the National Electoral Council confirmed that all voting materials and machines, as well as the necessary biosecurity measures, were in place for this Sunday's vote. Before the official results were announced, the candidate for the Great Patriotic Pole Alliance, Jorge Arias, informed on his Twitter account that despite increasing the vote share, unfortunately, the United Socialist Party of Venezuela had not achieved the objective of winning the governorship of the state of Barinas. He expressed his gratitude to all those party members who campaigned and stressed that they would continue to work for the benefit of the people of Barinas. And earlier in the day, the commander of the Los Llanos Integral Defense Network, Santiago Infante, informed that troops had been deployed across the state of Barinas to ensure the security of the elections.
More than 24,000 members of the Civil Military Police Union have been deployed in Barinas State to guarantee the execution of Operation Barinas in support of the activities programmed by the National Electoral Council for the election of the governor of Barinas State, January 2022.
After casting his ballot, Jorge Arias, a candidate for governor of Barinas for the Great Patriotic Pole Alliance, called on voters to turn out to the polls.
We are voting today precisely here in Tabacare City in Barinas. We are calling on all the people of Barinas who are registered with the National Electoral Council in the electoral roll to exercise their right to vote today, because democracy is nourished by the vote in a presidential election, in a regional election, in a municipal election, for the National Assembly, but also for your community council, for your municipality, for your workers' productive council, for all the institutions involved of our participatory democracy.
Jorge Arias also thanked the National Electoral Council for its work in ensuring that everything was in place for this Sunday's vote.
The most important incident I can report is that in record time, at 8 o'clock in the morning, all the voting tables were set up and turnout is flowing smoothly. There were some incidents. Remember that vote buying was detected on November 21st, and as such the institutions are present. The armed forces with the Republican plan, the Public Prosecutor's Office, the justice system is also paying attention to those situations that constitute an electoral offense and that must be prevented by all means. Overall, we are in peace, tranquility, and exercising our right to vote in Barinas. Thank you very much.
Opposition candidate for the Solutions for Venezuela party, Claudio Fermin, stated that he would promote and defend pluralism and work towards a prosperous Venezuela if elected state governor.
We have completed a campaign for Venezuela. We have always believed in participation. We have promoted and defended pluralism. There are different points of view, but this candidacy is for pluralism. It is for inclusion, and in the name of those values, in the name of the reconciliation that Venezuela needs, in order to see investment, more jobs, for us to be able to move forward against poverty in a real way, with our feet firmly on the ground. We have
Opposition candidate for the governor of Barinas, Sergio Garrido, representing the Democratic Unity Roundtable Coalition, expressed confidence in the electoral process taking place this Sunday. Garrido exercised his right to vote at noon before offering statements to the press, calling on citizens of Barinas not to miss the opportunity of participating in this election. Nicaragua's new National Assembly was officially installed this Sunday for its 5-year legislative period. The 19 members of parliament elected in the November 7th general elections received their credentials from the President of the Supreme Electoral Council, Brenda Rocha, who took the oath of office. Legislators unanimously re-elected Gustavo Porras as President of the Parliament's Board of Directors. The ruling Sandinista National Liberation Front secured another landslide victory in the November elections, with President Daniel Ortega re-elected and adding to its parliamentary majority. Argentina's automotive production increased by 69% in 2021 compared to 2020. Meanwhile, according to data provided by the Association of Automotive Manufacturers, exports rose 88% year-on-year. We have more with our correspondent Carolina Silvestre.
The automotive industry produced more than 400,000 units, a figure that indicates the possibility of maintaining sustained growth in the future.
What can be effectively seen in this sector is that it has already recovered not only what was lost, it has largely surpassed what was lost during 2020, the worst moment of the pandemic, but it has also recovered compared to 2019. It is a sector that is clearly heading towards overcoming the double crisis, the crisis of the coronavirus and also the crisis that was generated in the last 2 years by the previous government, by the government of Mauricio Macri.
According to the Ministry of Production, Matias Culfas, the automotive industry's future is very promising.
We are already talking about automotive projects that have a national component of over 40%. We are talking about the fact that when we started, out of every 100 cars that were patented in Argentina, only 27 were of national manufacture, and now we have closed the year with around 88 cars out of every 100 patented of national manufacture. That is to say, it is a much more competitive industry, much more productive, with more national components, generating many jobs.
Regarding exports, the president of the Association of Automotive Manufacturers, Martin Galdeano, reported that they increased by 82% and offered details on what remains to be done.
Some laws that are in Congress, such as the Automotive Industry Promotion Law and the Sustainable Mobility Law, that are key to the future and the long term of our industry.
General Secretary of the Argentine Union of Mechanical and Allied Automotive Transportation, Ricardo Pinanelli, expresses similar views.
We have to push ahead with increasing national components. By adding domestic components, we will be able to export more and import some models that are required by a certain number of Argentines.
With a positive balance for 2021, the automotive industry projects a production increase of around 28% and export growth of 34% for the current year.
Carolina Silvestre, Telesur, Buenos Aires.
And we'll be right back after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. West African regional leaders imposed new sanctions on Mali on Sunday, suspending most commerce and financial aid to the country after its military rulers said they would stay in power for 4 more years instead of holding an election next month as promised. According to a statement released after a day-long meeting in Ghana's capital, the sanctions mark the steepest consequences for Mali to date and include land and air border closures with other countries belonging to the Economic Community of West African States. The junta, led by Colonel Assimi Goïta, initially agreed to hold a new election in late February, 18 months after it first seized power. But following another coup that ousted the civilian transitional authorities in May last year, Goïta said elections would not be held until 2026. The new sanctions won't apply to essentials like pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, equipment to fight COVID-19, petroleum products or electricity.
Find the proposed chronogram for a transition totally unacceptable. This chronogram simply means that an illegitimate military transition government will take the Malian people hostage during the next 5 years. The authority reiterated its call for the transition authorities to focus on activities geared toward an expeditious return to constitutional order.
Leaders of Somalia have set a final date to hold parliamentary elections after repeated delays to the process. Authorities announced on Sunday they had struck a deal to wrap up the elections by February 25th after several days of talks hosted by Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble with state leaders to try to defuse a bitter political crisis. Roble and President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, better known by his nickname Farmajo, have long been at loggerheads over the long-delayed elections, with fears the divides could erupt into violence. Voting follows a complex indirect model whereby state legislators and clan delegates pick lawmakers for the national parliament, who in turn choose the president. Nearly 30,000 clan delegates are assigned to choose the 275 members of the lower house, while Somalia's 5 state legislators elect senators for the 54-member upper house. In Mexico, the rise in COVID-19 cases continues. However, authorities in the capital have ruled out a lockdown while recommending that measures be maintained to avoid the spread of the virus. Our correspondent Eduardo Martinez has the story.
Continue in Mexico City despite the increase in cases of COVID-19 that has been registered in the last few weeks. Andrea Diaz expects the situation to be kept under control in order to be able to return to face-to-face classes.
I don't feel so worried anymore, because I already have the 2 vaccine shots and I have been taking care of myself with sanitizers and healthy distancing. But I'm worried that once again there are going to be school and other closures, because we are set to return to classes this month, and I don't want to be locked up in my house all the time.
In public health centers, pharmacies, and even in shopping malls, there is an increase in the flow of people seeking a SARS-CoV-2 screening test. The percentage of positivity in the capital of the country is 25%, according to the authorities. This January 6th alone, 5,800 new infections were detected. In spite of this, the mayor confirmed that the epidemiological traffic light remains green.
We call on citizens to keep calm because we are all vaccinated and because this particular variant does not seem to be so serious. It is transmitted very fast, but it is not so dangerous.
So far, hospitalizations continue to fall. Therefore, authorities have ruled out the suspension of economic and social activities, but have called on the population to stay informed and attentive to any symptom of the disease.
Its predominant pattern is that it stays in the upper respiratory tract, and the symptoms are much more similar to a common cold, including a runny nose, sore throat, headache, body aches. Here what matters is that if the person has symptoms, he or she should be isolated.
Those responsible for the health emergency in the Mexican capital also reiterated the call for vaccinations and announced that the booster campaign for the entire population over 15 years of age will be accelerated. Meanwhile, the country overall has accumulated more than 4 million positive cases of COVID-19, and daily infections exceeded 25,000 due to the presence of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus, which, according to the authorities, will displace the Delta version in the next few days.
Eduardo Martínez, Telesur, Ciudad de México.
Thousands of protesters marched in Brussels on Sunday to oppose anti-COVID regulations as European governments contemplate tighter rules in the face of the Omicron wave. Before the march began, police detained 11 suspects found to be carrying fireworks. 30 more arrests were made at the end after a small group threw projectiles at riot officers, the force said. Riot police erected barbed wire barricades across roads leading towards the European Union's headquarters buildings and deployed drones and 2 water cannon trucks. Belgium requires residents to show a COVID certificate to enter bars, restaurants and cultural events, and there have been several recent street protests. On Sunday, the health minister called for a parliamentary debate on tighter rules as Belgium sees COVID cases soar as the Omicron variant takes hold. We have more stories coming up after this final short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The deployment of peacekeeping forces of the Collective Security Treaty Organization in Kazakhstan has been completed, following the request from the country's president in the face of destabilization attempts. Order has largely been restored in the country following the major unrest which began as peaceful protests against fuel price rises, but spiraled into chaos and destruction of public institutions, in what the president stressed were coordinated terrorist attacks by foreign-trained sleeper cells. After a state of emergency was declared across the country, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev asked member states of the CSTO to send peacekeepers to stabilize the situation.
Following the decision of the Collective Security Council of CSTO, the collective peacekeeping forces have finished deployment to the Kazakhstan Republic. The units of the peacekeeping forces are currently protecting vital military, state and socially important sites in the city of Almaty and nearby districts. The situation on the territory of the Republic of Kazakhstan is stabilizing and is under control of the authorities.
On Sunday, Pakistan Army rescuers cleared routes around a hill town sheltering thousands of tourists after 22 people died in vehicles trapped by heavy snow. The resort town of Murree, around 70 kilometres northeast of the capital Islamabad, was inundated with tourists and day trippers last week after unusually heavy snow turned it into a winter wonderland. But a blizzard from Friday onwards dumped 4 feet of snow, blocking narrow roads leading in and out of the town, which clings to steep hills and valleys at an altitude of more than 2,000 metres. Stuck in their cars overnight, 22 people died from the cold or carbon monoxide poisoning from exhaust fumes. Among them were 10 children.
I started crying and praying. Papa told me that I am with you and nothing will happen. But even then, we were crying constantly and were praying. Thank God that he helped us. As a tourist, we didn't get any type of alert from society, from the government, from Google, from the news, from the weather. Obviously, we had strange feelings after we learned about the deaths due to snow. We were worried that we were facing the same situation which they have faced. So we were in an odd situation, odd condition, but later we felt relaxed after we learned about the armed camp in the morning. That army is here, rescue and police is here, so they will help us.
Many people were trapped that night when the snowstorm hit, and there was no one to rescue, nor someone to guide them. We, 3 to 4 men, went there and guided them. We have free accommodation and you stay with us for free. But people were scared and were coming out of their vehicles and not coming with us. Many people had died overnight when we went there in the morning.
A fire swept through a Rohingya refugee camp in southeastern Bangladesh on Sunday, destroying hundreds of homes. According to officials and witnesses, there were no immediate reports of casualties. The blaze hit Camp 16 in Cox's Bazar, a border district home to more than 1 million refugees, most of whom fled a military-led crackdown in Myanmar in 2017. A Bangladesh government official said emergency workers had brought the fire under control and the cause of the blaze is still under investigation. Last Sunday, a blaze tore through a COVID-19 treatment centre in another refugee camp, causing no casualties. A devastating fire last March swept through the world's biggest refugee settlement in Cox's Bazar, killing at least 15 refugees and burning down more than 10,000 shanties. And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and you can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.